I've had controversial guests on this show before, and if you know anything about my journalism career, I've had a moment or two of controversy myself. But neither I nor anyone who's been on the show has been anywhere near as controversial as Ron Galella, my guest on this, the second season finale of The Originals, produced in proud partnership with Los Angeles Magazine. So if you know the name, or at least recognize it, it's because Ron Galella is probably the only truly famous American paparazzo who ever lived. Could you name another? I'll wait for you. Can you? Galella actually has a trademark name for himself. Here's Ron.
This is Ron Galella, Paparazzo Extraordinaire.
Anyway, his work from the 60s through the early aughts is considered by some, notably Ron himself, to be art. Others do too. A fancy New York gallery that sells his prints for thousands of dollars. 3 of his photographs are in MoMA's permanent collection. He's a favorite of high-end clothing designers. Tom Ford is on record as a big fan of his aesthetic. And a number of years ago, Michael Kors bought a bunch of his prints and actually called one of his clothing lines Galella Glamour. And it cannot be denied. If you find Jackie O to be a fashion and style icon, it's likely because you enjoyed and appreciated the photos that Ron Galella captured of her. But, and in Galella's career, there are many, well, big buts. A lot of people hate him. Here's one-time Metropolitan Museum director Thomas Hoving completely shitting on his entire life's work.
Took millions of pictures, thousands of them are hanging in museums, but so what, you know? Ron Galella will go down as this obscene, bottom-feeding, snapshot tabloid, so-called journalist. You just wait and see. Wait 50 years and check it out, all right?
So that was from the 2010 documentary about Ron, Smash His Camera, in which others call him a lot of really terrible things, notably sociopath. And I personally don't know if this speaks to any psychological issues, sociopathic or otherwise, but nobody loved that film more than Ron Galella himself. Hoving, we should note, died in 2009, and Ron just turned 90 and still posts regularly on Instagram. So, when you think about it, maybe Hoving was not the best authority on longevity. This is The Originals, and I'm your host, Andrew Goldman. As an interviewer for places like the New York Times and Vulture, I've interviewed way more celebrities than I even care to admit. A lot of stars don't like to share much of themselves, so I created The Originals to interview cultural figures who actually have something to say. Some of them have great dish, others a few axes to grind. Ron Galella's got both of these, but as you'll see, he also has a trait that you often read about, but actually rarely encounter in real life. This is a man who is totally guileless. There is no artifice with him. You may hate absolutely everything about him after hearing this interview, but you will not feel like he's trying to put one over on you. Just a note, most of what Ron told me and you're about to hear is brand new, but some actually appeared in a Town & Country feature last year about him. We first spoke in a rehab facility in New Jersey. He'd fallen in his home and shattered his leg, but was eager to talk about his recent memoir, Shooting Stars. And as you're gonna hear, I found myself competing with physical therapists and nurses for Ron's attention. So here's the interview. You'll find if you ever get the opportunity to talk to Galella, it will not be long before you hear about his most famous picture of his most famous subject, Jackie O, which he shot on October 7th, 1971. Ron Galella, welcome to The Originals. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Andrew.
What the hell happened to your leg? What are we doing here?
Well, what happened is I have a high bed, and I had a rail with a stool, and I missed the rail, and I come down, and my weight on the leg, and it fractured the femur, about 3 inches fractured. And the surgeon put screws in the plate, so it's healing pretty good.
So do you live in that big house alone?
More or less, yes. But there's 3 days, there's Kathy there, but the rest of the day, I have another employee, Nick, so that's it. But when I go back, there's going to be 24 hours.
Oh, yeah?
Help, you know.
So is Kathy, she's not a relative, is she?
No, she's been working for me for 25 years, from way back, and she's very good. She knows the business. She's a photographer, too. Yeah.
She's not one of the photographers that ever helped you with, you've had assistant photographers. I know that you had somebody who was shooting with Jackie.
Oh, Joy Smith.
Joy Smith.
But she was not a photographer. Joy Smith happens to be the model that I shot pictures of her in the park, Central Park, across from Jackie, for her portfolio, these pictures. And after coming out of the park, I went on 85th, going toward Madison, and Jackie comes out on the side door in front of us and doesn't see us and goes to the corner and then goes north on Madison Avenue in 85th. So I got to the corner and I did a smart thing. I hopped a cab to catch up to Jackie. If I ran after her, I would never get my greatest picture, Windblown Jackie, my greatest picture. So I got in the cab, caught up to her on 90th Street in Madison, and then the driver of the taxi blew his horn. I didn't even tell him. He was interested in Jackie, too. He blew his horn.
Oh, he recognized it was Jackie? He wasn't
I told him. I said, that's Jackie.
Okay.
We're following her. And the decisive moment, she turned after he blew the horn, and I got the Mona Lisa smile on Jackie. And that's why it's a great picture. It's a great picture also because she's informally dressed, where normally we see her in a Valentino dress at events. Here she is, informally dressed, no makeup, no hairdo, but the wind blowing on her hair, and I call it Windblown Jackie. When I got out of the taxi, she recognized me. See, she didn't recognize me when I took the picture. You know why? I had the camera in the back of the taxi, the camera blocking my face. So she didn't know it was me.
You usually didn't actually have the camera blocking your face, right? Wasn't your style to shoot?
Yeah.
It was to shoot.
That's right. But here
But what was it?
Here I had to use the long lens. I had to use at least an 85 or a 135. An 85. I had to use that lens and have to focus.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Same time for therapy tomorrow.
Right. Thank you. Could you close the door, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So where did you usually position the camera?
Usually I keep it down and I have eye contact with my subject. Eye contact means person to person, human being to human being, not a machine. You're looking through a machine, you don't get the real McCoy. You don't get the genuine, natural expressions. So that's why I shoot that way. But only with a wide-angle lens, I do that. I go to the subject, get it fast, shoot fast, and the subject says, I don't want pictures, I honor that. I don't take.
Oh, you do? Really?
But I got the pictures already.
You could fill a volume on the relationship between Ron Galella and Jackie O. Whether it be cataloged in the photography or psychology sections is not entirely clear. In Ron's telling, it's one of the great love stories of the 20th century, but fate and the courts just drove them apart. It all started in 1967 when he learned that she and Aristotle Onassis lived at 1040 Fifth Avenue. Soon, he was showing up to shoot her in disguises. He'd wear fake mustaches, he'd do hippie garb, he even wore an afro wig. He'd follow her into Broadway theaters, he would follow her into John Jr.'s school Christmas pageant, and he shot her from behind a coat rack in a Chinese restaurant. He seduced her young housekeeper so he could pump her for intelligence, and he even once hired a Santa Claus to follow Jackie O shopping because he figured, hey, nobody'd ever shot pictures of Jackie and Santa Claus together. So years of court cases followed. Jackie sued him in 1971 and 1982, but all of these legal wranglings could be traced back to one specific day, when Jackie would tell authorities that she feared that the shock of encountering Galella leaping out in Central Park nearly sent her son, John Jr., careening into Fifth Avenue traffic on his bike.
September 24th, 1969, I went to Jackie's apartment, and I got a tip from the doorman. He said, Jackie is in the park on bicycles. Mm-hmm. And I tip him off $10 or $15 for, he's friendly, the doorman next door to Jackie.
Oh, it's not Jackie's actual doorman.
No, he would never.
Oh, that's interesting. So you go to the guy next door.
The guy next door.
What address was it? So her apartment was what? Fifth Avenue?
1040 Fifth Avenue. So I go in the pedestrian path in Central Park, across from Jackie, and I see Jackie and John Jr. on bikes near the reservoir. So I ran down the path. I hid behind a tree, and they came down, and I got 2 great pictures.
Oh, yeah. No,
they'll know.
John is on a bike. And
Yeah.
Are they both on bikes? Let me see.
Yeah, they're both on a bike.
John looks to be about, I would say, 10 or 11 at that point.
I forget. About, I guess. Jackie, well, first of all, Jackie, when she recognized me come out of the bushes, out of the tree, she said, "Oh, it's you again."
Yeah.
So then she goes to the cab. So then at this curb, she's in the street, she said, "Mr. Connolly comes." And he says, "Stop." Goes, "Stop me."
Who's Mr. Connolly is?
Connolly, Secret Service
Secret
agent.
Service. Do you know these guys pretty well by this point?
Yeah, I know them. They know me. So
Do they hate you?
I don't think they hate me, but they do their job. They block me.
Yes.
They block me when they can, and they ruin my pictures, They go overboard. So anyway, she says, "Mr. Connolly, smash his camera." He didn't smash my camera. And I got that picture there. Yeah.
See, that's interesting because when you were eventually faced off in court, there was some discussion of whether she actually felt threatened or scared by you. And I think
she said yes. Jackie had to lie left and right to win the case. And I have to accept that. She had won the case because she lied. She liked me taking my pictures of her. She was an actress. If she was alone, it would never happen. If she was alone, this would never happen.
Now you spent an amazing amount of time every day in front of 1040 Fifth Ave. Now tell me what a typical day was. Was this a 5-day-a-week gig shooting Jackie?
No, not the critical time is not so much in the afternoon. In the afternoon, sometimes I'm lucky. I got going to Bombatella's, etc., shopping. But normally, the best time is from 7 to at least 8:30 or 9. That's the time that Jackie would go out to the ballet, 8 o'clock. Or if Aries was her Arionasis, they go to dinner, 8:30 or 9. They go to the 21 Club or La Côte Basque. Those are the 2 favorite restaurants. And I follow them and get the pictures there. So that's the routine.
So would you shoot her getting out of 1040 Fifth, or would you only just...
No, usually I follow them. I usually don't. Sometimes I do. In the daytime, other times I did get them in front, especially when she goes to Peapack. She has a home in Peapack, New Jersey, and she goes there on weekends, horseback riding, etc. And she comes back to 1040, usually Monday or Sunday afternoon. She comes back. Then I get the pictures in front.
Okay.
To her door.
Would you go to... Now, where did you travel to photograph her?
Well, I traveled, besides New Jersey, getting pictures at our house there.
Could you shoot her at her house? How would you get shots of her?
Outside the house. I got her once picnicking. She left the house. I used a long lens. They never saw me. They left the house with Caroline and John and the dog, and they went under a tree, and they had a picnic. And I got pictures of that. They never saw me. And they went back, and I got pictures of them going back to the house. And that was the end. Those pictures ran all over.
Do you think that, just the experience of not knowing that somebody was watching you and then opening a magazine and seeing images from you picnicking, do you think it would be kind of creepy?
Yeah. Well, here's a good story. I shot Doris Day at her home in Crescent Drive. She had a pool in the backyard. And I would check every time to see, I must have gone 30 or 40 times, and she's not there. But one day, I was lucky. She's there at the pool in a bikini with her dogs. And I go next door, and I told the gardener, he says, it's okay to shoot, because the people are not home. It's okay to shoot from his property.
Wait, the neighbor okays it?
Yeah,
the neighbor. Terrible neighbor.
Yeah,
for her.
Yeah, it was good. But anyway, I shot, and Doris Day never saw me. I shot through the bushes with a long lens, swimming with a dog, bikini, and even the next day with a boyfriend there too. Anyway, these pictures ran 4 pages in Modern Screen. She called the Mountain Screen and says, who took the pictures? They didn't reveal the name. They said, no, they protected me. But years later, she came out with a book at Britanno's in New York. And I told her, I said, I was the photographer who shot those pictures. I have a lot of chutzpah, balls.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And she said, and you want me to pose here, Nick?
So she...
But she was nice.
Yeah? Do you feel like...
Invading privacy?
What do you feel... So Jackie said, in court that she felt threatened and menaced. Yeah. But you didn't really believe her.
No. Bullshit. It's all bullshit. She loved to be photographed.
How do you know?
Example. Everything over, after the trial, I did my first book, Jacqueline. And I autographed it to her. I said, thank you for making me a celebrity. Or gave it to the doorman. She got it. And before she died, somebody delivered pictures, and he told me she still has that book on the shelf, my Jacqueline. She didn't throw it away. I believe she loved my pictures. That's why she kept the book, and it's beautiful.
So you don't think that there's any possibility that she just felt like you were just a creep and you were...
Nah.
So, but where did you go beyond? Okay, so how many?
I went to Scorpios.
First of all, how many days a week did you show up at her apartment?
Every day I go in town. Every day.
So there's always a stop.
I was not married. I had no girlfriend. She was my girlfriend. I called her my golden girl.
Yeah. So what kind of conversations did you have? Did she ever say...
Okay, I recall one time she did talk to me. She went to the 21 Club with Harry Onassis, and she comes out, and she approaches me. She grabs my wrist, pushes my elbow against the limousine, and says, you've been hunting me for 3 months now, in a whispering voice. I said, yes, I was shocked. She said that. But she was not angry. And I believe she liked to be pursued. She goes to New Jersey for those hunts with the fox and the horses they run. So she felt that I pursued her like I hunted her.
And you think she liked it?
I think she did, yes.
She said that I think that there was some disagreement over whether she felt scared or threatened. I think that your lawyers posted photo after photo of her smiling in your shots. And they said, does this look like the look of fear?
Right.
And I think that her response was, I didn't want to make a scene because that would be the photo that he would want. If I just put a smile on my face.
She called it the Galella smile, I think they called it.
She had been obviously the first lady of the United States. You don't think she had the poise to just not make a big production out of it?
No, I think they were genuine smiles.
Yeah.
I'll give you another point. At the end of this trial, the judge appointed by President Kennedy, a biased judge, Irving Cooper, He did everything. He says, I can't go 100 yards from our apartment. I can't go 70 yards, 75 yards from Jackie and the children as well. So I appealed, and 3 judges brought it down that I could photograph Jackie at 25 feet. And I could go to her apartment anytime. Right. So now I resumed photographing her in 1975. So I resumed photographing her at 25 feet. And I broke this. They claimed 4 times that I broke. I broke it many more times than four times.
Okay. So why did you do it? Was it because she was such a big part of your business, or did you do it because it was exciting and
both?
Were you in love with her in some way?
I say yes. I loved her as a subject and maybe a girlfriend. Because I didn't have a girlfriend. I wasn't married.
Do you think she was in love with Onassis?
No.
Why do you?
Well, she married him for security. Because of the assassinations of the president, Robert Kennedy, she thought they were all after the Kennedys. So Aerie provided a good, safe place at Scorpios, safe, with bodyguards and everything. So that's why she married him, security. Yeah.
So,
they had separate beds, too.
At some point, I think that you had said you would have liked to have photographed her in hot pants. And this came up in the trial.
Oh.
Do you remember this?
No. I never did get her in hot pants. The only time I landed on Scorpios 3 times, I hired a fisherman to take me, and I ran, and I hid. And there's a lagoon, and on the other side of the lagoon is Jackie was there, and Lee Radziwill, and I got Lee Radziwill doing exercise, yoga, in a bikini, but Jackie was in a bathing suit. I never got her in a hot pants or a bikini.
You saw the nudes that somebody took?
Yeah, Garitano, I know the photographer.
Were you jealous? Is this a shot that you would have liked to have gotten?
No, I'm glad she wasn't nude when I shot her. I think it's distasteful, too. I think that is invading privacy when you get somebody nude.
So if you had been there, you wouldn't. If you had been there, you would have gotten the shot. No.
Probably I would have, but I may not have released it. See, I believe that a woman is sexier with clothes, with lingerie, with sexy panties. That, to me, excites me more because your imagination fills in the rest. Where a nude really, to me, is not that sexy.
So Ron eventually got a non-fantasy realm girlfriend, a newspaper photo editor named Betty Burke, and in 1979 made her his wife. Just a side note, Tiny Tim actually came to their wedding. You're right, Betty was a photo editor for a Sunday supplement called Today is Sunday. How did you meet exactly?
She fell in love with my work. She bought my pictures. She had a soft, loving voice. I fell in love with her voice. She's from Kentucky, a country girl.
At one point, you, I think, wrote in one of your books that when you first heard her voice, it sounded a bit like Jackie's.
Yeah, it's possible. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that
Jackie spoke.
Betty was your primary love of your life, but I think Jackie might have been your secondary, no?
Yeah. Well, Jackie was primary before I met my wife. See, I didn't have any girlfriend. I didn't have Betty till later.
You married kind of late in life, right?
Yeah, I was 48 years old.
How did you, what were you doing all that time?
Well, I met a lot of girls I could have married, but I never was that in love with them. Like a lot of them were Italian, and I didn't like Italian girls. I thought that Italian girls were noisy too, that they were loud. So that's why I didn't like Italian girls. I liked Jackie because she's whispery, Marilyn Monroe, whispery. Betty, my love, whispering. I fell in love with the voice. And she bought my pictures for 2 years, never meeting her.
Where was she located? Where were their offices?
She worked from Washington, D.C. That's where her publication was.
So you talked to her for 2 years and you sold her your photos. I think I saw some of the photos.
So then finally, she also not only bought my pictures, she got me in events. See, as a freelancer paparazzo, to get in events, you have to have an assignment. And she provided assignment. So I got in events with her. So that was another reason I loved her, of course. So finally, I go to Washington, D.C., National Airport, and she has credentials for me for the Superman premiere with Christopher Reeve. So I landed, I see her at the airport, and with just one look at her, I said, "Are you married?" She says, "No, I'm going to marry you." I didn't even ask her. I said, "I'm going to marry you." I married her 5 months later. Yeah.
That was a good night for you, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. I danced with her at the event, and then I shacked up with her in the hotel. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, because my philosophy is in salesmanship, you gotta finish the deal. You got to close the deal.
And was that pretty much the end? You guys were
that was
an item?
She joined me, and she became a photographer with my organization.
You worked as a team, right?
Yeah, we worked as a team, yes.
So instead of you sitting alone in the car, it would be you and Betty sitting in the car?
Yes. Both of us would shoot. It was great. Like once we covered Johnny Carson's show, the guests come in. I was shooting the outside. Burt Reynolds comes out, and I shoot him. And he goes to the elevator where Betty is at the elevator covering that. And Burt Reynolds says, "Oh, you're better to look at than your husband." Because she was a pretty girl. You see
was that one of the reasons you said it? You said it. Betty was much younger when you married.
Yeah.
And she wanted
17 years younger.
So what happened to Betty? What happened to your wife? What happened to Betty?
Well, what happened is she smoked. And smoking destroyed her lungs, and she had asthma, trouble breathing. She had to have oxygen overnight.
What did she die of?
Emphysema.
Oh, how terrible.
Emphysema is the lungs, right? Yeah.
What year did she die?
She died in 2016. She died January 9th, one day before my real birthday. She died at 68 years old. Yeah.
So young.
Yeah. She died in her sleep, thank God. She didn't suffer. She was in the oxygen. I brought her the tray of food. I put it on her bed. I figured she's going to eat later. And I go back. She died. She was dead. She never touched the food.
You seem like such an upbeat person. It must have been very difficult for you, no?
It was. She was my love.
And it seems like she was a great businesswoman, correct?
She was. Very good businesswoman. She made me rich, really.
She did.
We were in Yonkers, and we bought the New York Times, and she saw this house. She says, "I like this house." It was in Montville, right where I live now, with a backyard. It's you're going to see it's beautiful. With I made Italian fountains, statues. It's beautiful.
You have outfitted it with artificial flowers, correct?
Oh, yeah. She didn't like that because her parents were florists.
One way to endear yourself to your wife, whose parents are florists, is to cover the place with artificial flowers. What did you do? Did you spray them or something? What did you do with them?
Yeah, I dipped them in polyurethane. So it lasts through the winter.
Do you still have a lot of rabbits?
Both my wife and I loved rabbits because both of us had pet rabbits when we were kids, children.
Tell me about your pet rabbit when you were a child.
Yeah. Okay. My father got this rabbit from a farm, a friend farm. Probably gave him wine. My father makes homemade wine.
Your father, it sounds like, made a lot of homemade wine. Yeah?
Oh, yeah. He got drunk on weekends.
Yeah.
But he's a hardworking man, and he provided, bought a house, paid the house.
Did he beat you when he drank, or?
No, never beat me. Never.
It did not please your mother, though. Is that correct?
No, they had differs. He was old school, and my mother was Americanized. And my mother liked glamour, and my father was just like wine.
And Italian was his first language, right?
Yes, yeah. They spoke Italian, but not to us. My mother spoke English to us.
So
he had big hands because he worked so hard. He had only 2 jobs in America: Steinway piano, cabinet making, and National Casket Company.
National Casket Company.
Steady business.
Yeah, the business never goes away.
Both in Long Island City.
But your dad, he brought the bunny into the house, right?
Yeah, he bought this bunny, and we had the bunny live in the basement in the Bronx, northeast Bronx. The rabbit was in the basement, and he got all dirty because we had a coal stoker. Coal was the fuel that we used, and the soot got the rabbit dirty.
White rabbit?
Yeah, well, it was a white rabbit, became a gray rabbit. And my father killed it and ate it. Oh, we couldn't stand that. That was the end.
Slow down.
Yes.
So does the rabbit getting dirty have anything to do with the fact that he killed it and ate it?
No, it had nothing to do with the dirt. No, he's.
How did you find
He's
out?
foreign.
How did you find out that he'd eaten your rabbit? Did he feed it to you?
He did it in front of us.
Did he kill it in front of you?
No, he didn't kill it in front of us. He did it on the side. I didn't witness the killing. No.
Oh my gosh, were you wailing? Were the kids?
Oh yeah, we didn't like that. We cried.
Now he and your mother lived in the same building, but they didn't actually live together. Is that right?
Well, they lived together at first. They didn't get along. He was picky with the food and the money. He would only give my mother 50 cents for the day for food. We were 5 of us, and we had to do credit. My mother, we did credit with the grocery because we needed more food to eat and all that.
You were never hungry, though.
No,
you weren't impoverished like that.
No, never. Yeah. Never hungry, never.
As long as there's pets around, there's something to eat.
No, I never ate pets.
I'm surprised you don't say more horrible things about your father. He sounds like a real...
No, I love my father.
He sounds terrible, this guy.
No, he was a good man.
All right.
I mean, he was hard to live with. I mean, he would get drunk on weekends.
But he wouldn't beat you, at least.
He would never beat. But he would preach to us.
Preach?
We're sleeping in our bed. He would say, every day you must save 10 cents, a quarter, and save it in the bank. He was interested in money, saving money. That was his big thing.
That's interesting. When he got drunk, that's what he would do, huh?
He would get drunk and talk.
Galella would eventually get pretty wealthy, but he worked very hard for decades to get there. He'd shoot Jackie in the afternoons, and then in the evenings, he'd shoot parties and events. Then overnight, he'd develop his photos in his darkroom. Then, in the morning, he'd make contact sheets and bring them into the city to sell them to the TV and movie magazines. The going rate for black and white pictures of celebrities back then was shockingly low, like $25 a shot for these down market publications like Photoplay. Time and Newsweek paid a little more, $50 or $100. The holy grail, the most he could hope for at that point, was if he happened to be shooting in color and a publication picked it up for their cover. That would pay him $1,000. Ron hired photographers to be where he couldn't be, which was everywhere, with a couple notable exceptions.
Then here's a good story. Oscar Abelafia. He was a friend. We were a team because he had no car. And I had the car, and we go to one event, to another. And one of the events that we missed, by the way, is Truman Capote's masked ball. We went there early, stupid, because we picked up 2 bimbo girls, and we left. We didn't know that it was the big masked ball. It was the biggest thing I missed.
So by the end of his career, he'd shot millions and millions of frames of film. A number of years ago, a curator named Stephen Blutal approached him, then spent months in his archives to produce the 2002 book called The Photographs of Ron Galella. It's very hard to get now, and if you can find it, it's very expensive, but it's a fantastic book. And you look at it and you realize Blutal's culling makes the absolute best case for Ron Galella as an artist. But as Blutal actually told me, the book also makes an argument that anyone with a camera who shot as much as Galella did would inevitably get a few hundred amazing shots. The volume and then the 2010 documentary provided the kind of respect that had forever eluded him. Do you consider yourself an artist, a great artist?
Yes, I consider myself a great photographer, the greatest living photographer now, my most famous now, living.
The greatest living photographer?
Now, yes.
Better than anybody else?
Yeah.
So
Robert Frank, you name who's better? Robert Frank? No. Well, you name...
Let me think.
I mean, I'm not talking about Avedon and Irving Penn. They were great photographers.
But they're dead.
They're dead.
It was interesting in your book that you said that you thought that had you had money, you could have had a studio like Avedon or Penn. Do you feel like this is...
No.
That it's like a class...
I'm glad that I didn't.
That it was a class thing, that you were kind of a working class guy and these guys were sort of, up in the ivory tower a little bit?
Oh, yeah. I think so, yeah. Well, they're studio photographers. This is the point I want to make. They were studio photographers. And I'm glad I didn't have the money to have a studio. Even though I could do studio photography, I was taught it was best that I was forced to make the world my studio in reality. And it's better. And that's my forte. My paparazzi pictures are great. There's no other that's as great. The studio photographers can get better background, nice white backgrounds, better lighting, everything better, but they can't get that genuine smile or expression that I could get in reality. See, in reality, the stars don't give a shit. The camera or the photographer, they're themselves. They're talking, they're active when they're genuine, you see. When a star is in the studio, they can't be themselves completely because they're trying to be something else.
So it's so interesting when I look at some of these photos because, it seems like in many cases, there are people posing for you and there are people who are definitely not upset to see you. And then in other cases, there are, Greta Garbo, for one, did not look happy to see you.
Oh, no.
Tell me about Garbo.
She really does not want pictures. I only got 2 takes of her. The first take, I'm in my car, getting off the FDR drive, and there she is walking up York, I believe. York.
So you hadn't staked her out?
No, I didn't stake her out. See, other times I did, but this time I caught her walking on York Avenue North. I get out of my car, start shooting her, and she pulled out an umbrella, even though it was raining, to shield herself. And she said to me, "Why do you bother me? I have done nothing wrong." So after that, I let her go. I got my pictures, and
was that kind of poignant to you? Was it What did it?
Well, yeah, I
tug on your heartstrings?
felt sorry for her because, I got my pictures, and I let her go. I didn't.
Did you shoot her again after that?
Oh yeah. So now I knew where she lived. She lived on 52nd Street, right against the East River.
Yeah.
I had big run-ins with Steve Rebell of Studio 54.
Could you even shoot anything? It was such a madhouse there. Did you get inside?
Oh yeah. He liked publicity.
Okay.
I got in, no problem, for a long time. But then he saw a picture in Playboy, that I shot of Ally McGraw, bare-chested, with a tit hanging out.
Uh-huh.
She was dancing at the studio. He said, Alan McGraw didn't like that picture. You're barred from the studio. He barred me for 1 month. I contacted Ally McGraw. I know her. She's a friend because I give her pictures and she likes me. And she was like, she didn't mind the picture. So, in fact, another picture that was without the breast showing ran in People.
If photography hadn't worked out for Ron, he might have had a career in NASCAR. He had many, many car chases pursuing celebrities, and once boasted that only one had outrun him, and that was Julie Christie going 90 miles an hour along a cliff in Malibu. Red lights for Ron were always optional. Galella actually coined a term, the paparazzi lane. Now this was an empty turn lane he would get into in order to rush in front of traffic. Yeah, Ron Galella was that guy in the turn lane who didn't turn.
So you shot Jane Fonda right after she had her baby, correct?
Yeah. It was written that she's going to have Vanessa, her baby, and she had the baby.
And she was married to Roger Vadim.
Roger Vadim, yeah.
The director?
So I did something that's got a lot of balls. I knocked on her door in the hospital. And
How long after she'd had the baby?
A week or so.
She was in the hospital for that long?
I think so. I don't know exactly.
Okay.
But she had the baby. The door was ajar, was open a little bit. And I knock. And I said, Jane. And I could hear she was in the shower. I hear a shower. So I said, let me go away. Because it's a bad time.
Yeah, I'd say so. It's her hospital room. But
Yeah.
if she had not been in the shower, you would have gotten the shot.
Yeah, she would have answered the door and I would have said, can I have a picture with the baby? That's the purpose.
Yeah. What do you think? What if she'd said no?
Well, then I would have got it outside. The next day I did get it.
Yeah.
When she did leave, she had the baby with Roger Dean, and I got the picture.
But they took off. Didn't they take off in
Oh,
the
yeah.
car?
Then what happened is it's amazing what he did. He got in his sports car with the baby in the front. She's seated in the passenger. And
She's got the baby on her lap?
Yeah.
I guess those were the days where you didn't put a baby in a
he
baby
put the
seat.
baby in the lap.
Okay.
And he went over 100 miles an hour, this fuck.
What?
Over 100 miles an hour on the highway. What a crazy man.
Did you follow him?
Of course, I followed him.
Well, maybe he was going. Was he trying to outrun you?
Perhaps. Not only me, I had three cars were following.
God, but it could have been a horrible accident.
I know, he's crazy.
So when you saw that Diana was killed, did you think to yourself, "Oh, thank God I wasn't one of those guys following her"?
Yeah, I thank God.
But
it wasn't the paparazzi. It was the fault of the driver. He was drugged and he put on the gas, went too fast in that tunnel, and went out of.
But they were being pursued.
And there was a car there that he avoided, and he smashed into the pillars.
So this must have been a discussion among photographers at that time, because everybody blamed the paparazzi.
Yeah, the French fucks, the French police blamed all the photographers there, and they arrested them. That was not right. They were later freed because they found out that it was the driver at fault at the end.
Had Roger Vadim hit a tree pursued by you and other photographers, do you think that they would have blamed you because you were pursuing him and Jane Fonda,
Perhaps.
the newborn?
Oh, yeah, I think they would.
Would you have felt guilty?
Yeah, I would have felt guilty, yeah. But, you see, I'm a secondary. The primary is the driver. The primary fault of the accident is the driver. In both cases, it was Roger Vadim, it was the driver for going that fast. And the same thing with Princess Di. That driver shouldn't be going that fast to avoid the paparazzi. But to tell you the truth, Princess Di loves the paparazzi. She poses a lot of times for the photographer.
I feel like that's kind of a theme that there's a lot of celebrities you think that doth protest too much You feel like they want to be photographed, but they take a posture of not wanting to be photographed and feeling annoyed?
Yes.
Considering his methods, it really is a wonder that Galella didn't get his ass kicked more. He'd gone to great lengths to pursue Richard Burton and Liz Taylor, so when crew members on a film they were shooting together in Cuernavaca discovered Galella trying to shoot Burton from inside a hotel pool pump house, they exacted revenge. And by the end of it, he'd broken his tooth, his lip was split, they'd confiscated his film, and then he got thrown into a Mexican jail. But nothing quite compared to what we'll call the Brando incident.
Yeah, I remember the Brando incident, June 12th, 1973. Chinatown was the locale. So what happened is Brando was going to be on Dick Cavett's show. So at the end of the show, at the end of the taping, I followed Brando and Dick Cavett, and they knew I was following them. And Dick Cavett knew me, and he's friendly. He knows me, he likes me. No problem with him. And he told Brando, Galella is following us. They went to Chinatown. They got out of the limousine. I got 10 shots about walking to the restaurant. And then they stopped. And then Brando calls me over. He says, what else do you want? They'd already have. And I said, well, they had both sunglasses, dark sunglasses at night.
The thing about the photos that is so amazing to me is that he had just been on the Dick Cavett show, and I saw the appearance, and Cavett is wearing a suit. But then Cavett changed into wearing
the same clothes as he did.
an outfit that's identical.
Identical. Red kerchief,
What is it?
blue jeans.
He looks like his little, like...
he imitated him.
little buddy.
Yeah,
He's wearing, like, a kerchief around his neck, the sunglasses.
Yeah. It was a funny thing that they had the same outfit. And I looked at Cavett, and I asked Cavett, I like a picture without the sunglasses.
Why the hell is Cavett wearing sunglasses anyway?
He's imitating Brando, I guess.
All right, okay. So they're both wearing sunglasses.
Both dark sunglasses.
Okay.
So I didn't even finish saying, I like a picture without sunglasses. Brando gave me a sucker punch to my jaw, lower jaw, and knocked 5 teeth. They went like this. They didn't completely out. They went like this, look.
Folded down like that?
Yeah,
like
and it cracked. I drove to Bellevue Hospital, and Paul
had anybody punched you before?
No, but Richard Burton's bodyguard socked me in the nose.
That's
not as bad, but so anyway, I put a handkerchief on my mouth, drove to Bellevue. They stitched me up, and I went to the show club. I even was covering events even that way with the Novocaine. My paparazzi germs infected his hand, and he almost bled to death. He went to the Regency Hotel, and the doctors bandaged him up.
Paparazzi germs.
Yeah, and then the next morning, Dick Cavett, a fan got a picture of Dick Cavett coming to the hotel, picking up Brando, taking him to the New York Hospital of Special Surgery, where he spent 3 days getting his hand fixed up. The good part of the story is, besides him getting his knuckles scarred, I sued him, and I won an out-of-court settlement of $40,000. My lawyers thought it was too low, but I said it's okay. And the lawyers get 1/3 of that. I got $27,000, and it took 3 times to fix the teeth.
A few weeks after our first interview, I met with Galella again. By then, he was back at his Montville, New Jersey home, a place he dubbed Villa Palladio, but anyone who's ever visited tends to remark how much it looks like Tony Soprano's place. The interior's like a museum to his work. Every inch of the wall is covered by huge prints of his photos. There are no rabbits anymore, but there are a lot of rabbit tchotchkes. In the walkway out in front, Galella actually installed a star with his name on it and his handprints because he once wrote, "The Hollywood Walk of Fame doesn't honor still photographers." After I'd seen him in the rehab facility, I managed to track down and correspond with James Kalifatis, who was a longtime member of Jackie's Manhattan Secret Service detail. Finally, I mean,
Well, I sent a note to Califatis, who actually got back to me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
What did he say?
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I mean,
What'd you ask him? What'd you ask?
I said that you and I talked about it, and that you didn't feel like she was particularly threatened. You want to hear what he said?
Yeah, what did he say?
We respected the right of photographers to earn a living from their chosen vocation, and most played by the rules and took their pictures without interfering with our responsibilities. Galella, on the other hand, was an obnoxious character who didn't, despite many admonitions, who would routinely try to get very close to Mrs. O or the children to take his photographs. He was of great concern for us as he routinely and obnoxiously hounded Mrs. Onassis and the children. He said there's no doubt he had some strange obsession with her.
Obsession?
Obsession.
Yeah, that's true.
You think it's true?
Yeah, I had an obsession.
He would often be seen combing his hair prior to an imminent departure from 1040 Fifth Ave.
Combing my hair?
Yeah.
No, that's not true.
Okay.
Boy, he wrote a lot.
You don't think she associated you being around with possibly like danger and
No.
guns and death? No? You don't think that?
Well, I cannot answer that fully. Psychologically, she could say I'm like an assassin, like Oswald. She could, but I don't know. I don't know her mind.
Yeah. You know, I asked you about what Califatis said, and you said you told Aristotle Onassis that you were not causing pain for his wife because you believed that you would help her forget the tragedy in her life.
I think I did say that to him.
What is it? Can you explain that to me?
Well, in other words, he might say, why do you bother us? Why do you photograph? And he said, you look at us as targets. He did say that, as targets. And I said, well, taking pictures, perhaps she could forget the tragedy in her past. I did say that. Maybe Jackie looked upon me as a sniper shooting her, like Oswald, for instance, which could be in her mind. But I can't know that from her mind. It's up to, it's a psychological thing that's a mystery. We don't know. We don't know what she's thinking or seeing. I don't think so, because the photographs show she's smiling, pleasant, positive.
Well, I mentioned that you thought that she possessed the photos.
She what?
She possessed the book of photos, one of your books of photos, correct?
Oh, yeah, the Jacqueline, yeah. That's the only book I gave her.
And that you thought that this was evidence that she enjoyed the attention. And he said, and this is a quote, "What a crock of shit. I would say this was a manifestation of his paranoid delusion in which he felt she was his girlfriend. I will only say that in many conversations I had with Mrs. Onassis and Mr. Onassis, she detested him and found him repugnant."
No, not true. I don't think so.
No?
The actions didn't show that. Did not show. Their actions, smiling into my camera is positive, and that's what she did most of the time.
Ron Galella, thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate it.
That's our show, and as they say, that's a wrap on our season. I will be back before you know it with a whole new spate of guests. They're going to be amazing. But if, unlike my wife and children during COVID, you just can't get enough of me, I'm going to be on the February 11th episode of my favorite pop culture and current events podcast, Nope. I've included a link in the show notes. This episode was produced by me, Andrew Goldman, and Rob Heath. I don't want to get too maudlin about this, but I want to offer special thanks in this episode to Rob. My father, Ed Goldman, passed away while we were producing this episode, and Rob helped me produce an absolutely gorgeous oral history taken from an old interview I did with my dad. So thank you so much, Rob. And I'm actually, at this point, seriously considering hanging out a shingle with Rob to start producing audio tributes at memorials. Get in touch if you'd like. And thank you, Dad. You actually reminded me in a lot of ways of Ron Galella. You were truly joyful and guileless, but fortunately, unlike Ron, you didn't stalk any former First Ladies. Thank you to Kathy Lehner at Ron Galella Limited. Thanks to publicist extraordinaire Lauren Kusarak of Kusarak & Co. Thanks also to all the great folks at Los Angeles Magazine, notably my good friend, Silver Fox editor Mayor Rashawn. The Originals is, as always, a highly replaceable production.